sa bukod. Hindi na ba nakasalanan ng dito?
Media educators are warning calls to defend press freedom.
This corruption in media will contribute.
You're watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel. With the elections nearing, already there's been a lot of issues that have sprung up, such as the two dominant political parties, UNA and the LP, the defects of the PCOS machine during the last mock elections, and the latest top 12 candidates, according to the SWS survey. We're going to discuss these and more with our two guests. Joining us today are two of the most respected columnists in this country. He was one of our first guests on the show. His columns, There's a Rub, has been featured on the Philippine Daily Inquirer for more than 20 years. He's Conrado de Quiros, of course. And he's a columnist for the Philippine Star and Filipino Star ngayon with columns like Sapol and Gotcha. Of course, he's Jarius Bondo. Conrad, Jarius, thanks for joining me. In the middle of the campaign season, nasa na tayo? Is it exciting for you guys?
Actually, ako tinatabangan mag-cover ng campaign.
Bakit?
Parang pareho lang naman yung dalawang partido. You don't really have a choice between the two. Mas gusto ko nga ngayon sulatin tungkol sa political dynasties. Why we shouldn't vote for political dynasties.
Well, that's still about them. Daming dynasty dun sa dalawang slate.
Exactly.
Conrad, do you feel the same way?
Exactly. Walang diferensya dun sa dalawang grupo. And sinabi ko na yun dati pa sa mga columns ko. Actually, you don't even need the two parties anymore. Ilista nyo lang yung pangalan ng mga kandidato alphabetically. And it wouldn't matter one bit. It's exactly the same thing.
Three guest candidates.
Huh?
Three guest candidates.
Yun ang guest candidates are the clearest proof of that. Meron ka dalawang partido na may guest candidates. How is that possible? Ibig sabihin, walang diferensya between the two groups.
Have you heard anything about platforms so far?
Pare-pareho ng pare-pareho lang sila ng platform. Yung sabihin, more jobs, more food on the table for the poor, health programs, pare-pareho Wala ka makitang difference nga ng dalawa. So,
personality.
But are you seeing a difference between that reality, you know? The same candidates, same faces, same names, political dynasties. Because ang dami doon, Dynasty Estrada, Magsaysay.
Correct.
Sino pa? Ang dami doon.
Maraming pinapangalanan.
Binay.
Well, some say si Bam Aquino. But I've written a column on it. Basically, ang sinasabi ko, if you're talking dynasty, you're essentially talking about people like Jackie Ponce Enrile. Kasi what is dynasty? Yung tatakbo ka lang, not because may personality ka
on your own,
but because you're the son of somebody, or you're the sister of somebody, or you're the daughter of somebody. That is dynasty. See, Jackie Ponce Enrile, if you vote for him, you're not voting for him. You're voting for the father.
Right, I read your column.
He's an absolutely unknown quantity, except in sa generation natin.
You wrote about Jack Enrile and Nancy Binay.
Right. Because wala naman sila. They don't really have any substance of their own. They're just taking their cue and their substance from their parents.
Nalaglag si Jack Enrile from the last survey. Yung ng SWS. All those surveys are just a slice in time, no? But is that significant for you, Jarius?
Yeah, kasi doon it shows na tama yung sinasabi niya na ano man mangyari sa pangalan ng father niya, kung tumaas o bumagsak, maapektuhan siya. And it's happening.
So bumabagsak siya dahil sa tatay niya. What are we facing as a public, as a voting public?
Not much, really. Actually, I've been saying it na, if you compare yung elections ngayon to 2010, 2010 talaga, grabe yung para it's not unlike yung snap elections na there was an element talaga dun of good versus evil. Na parang if you're voting for Pinoy, it was because you were a little pissed off with the previous administration. You consider that to be absolutely rotten. So you wanted change. And Pinoy just came from out of nowhere. But it was principle. It wasn't just personality. It was principle. Yun yung overriding concern dun sa characteristic ng elections na yun. Yung elections ngayon, wala It's a very traditional election that's based on personality. That is, kawawa yung mga the people who represent issues You look at Risa. Si Risa ang layo. And because she stands for something, our age and women's rights and so on, it's not the people who represent something that are doing well.
What do you mean?
Na walang alam yung mga tao, na hindi nila alam kung sino iboboto nila, that the people who make sense
kasalanan ng mga partido. We cannot blame the media for this. the media would simply mirror what is happening to the parties. The parties are not offering the people any real choice. That's the sad part. Pinipili lang nila personalities eh.
Para
Tapos
manalo.
tsaka nila lalagyan ng kunwari may plataforma. Diba? Iyan ang masaklap dyan. Pinipili nila kung sino ang tansya nilang mananalo.
So-
in part siguro may kinalaman din yung media, but more than that, I think it's the political culture. The political culture really militates against it. Ang laban talaga sa Pilipinas ng election, it's not about principles, except on rare occasions. Meron kayo snap elections, meron kayo 2010 elections. Those are rare occasions. Otherwise,
Very rare occasions.
very rare occasions. Otherwise, ang rule of thumb is personality. Kung sino mas may... Tingnan mo, who are the ones who are on top. These are the people associated na with old names eh. Parang, it's the culture.
So here we are, 75 days before the elections. And what we're saying is, if the Senate that is going to win in 2013, that is going to be declared in June of this year, is going to be headed by UNA, under Juan Ponce Enrile, or whether the Senate is going to be an LP Senate under Frank Drilon, is going to be the same. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, kasi actually...
Sino ang mananalo? Will
Wala.
the president win in this?
Ang mananalo
In
kung
this election.
sino may pera, tsaka may pansuhol dun sa COMELEC para papanalunin sila through the PICOs.
Okay, pag-usapan din
Tsaka
natin
it
yung
doesn't
people.
really matter naman who wins kasi after somebody wins, then all the rest gravitate around this party na nanalo.
Correct.
Di ba that's what happens sa atin?
Correct.
There's no real party in this country. Pag may nanalong presidente, everybody gravitates around
So
him.
okay lang for the
Creates-
president, yung reform agenda niya, tuloy. Ganun ba ang mangyayari?
Kung may reform agenda ang nakaupong presidente,
Oo.
okay yun. Eh kung
Oo.
wala,
Eh kung wala.
oo, yun ang delikado para sa bayan. Halimbawa ngayon, wala tayo nakikita, halimbawa, political parties discussing what is your foreign policy. Policy mo about China, policy mo about the Sabah claim, mga ganun. Wala. Ina-avoid. Kasi wala.
But more of the same.
Yeah, tsaka ang problema mo nga dyan, how can you push a reform given na all the wrong people get into the party eventually? Kasi you gravitate around the new leader. Kung alanganin yung mga tao nandun sa loob, how can you push the reform? Ang example ko dyan lagi, si Pinoy, I think at some point, had to, create some kind of coalition to oust si Corona. But yung coalition mo involves people like Juan Ponce Enrile, the Estradas, and so on. Can you push an anti-corruption agenda with these
With
people?
those people involved.
But diba, it's a little problematic.
But Mitzi is saying this is not really about 2013, this is about 2016. This is about Binay and Mar. Mananalo ba si Mar 2016 against Binay?
You answered that.
Long shot.
Long shot. But why will the LP gamble on something like that?
When?
Because in the surveys of 2010, I remember Mar wasn't doing very well in the start,
Yeah, yeah.
going into the
Yeah.
campaign. No? So why will a party like the Liberal Party gamble on Mar Rojas for 2016 when they know that now, malakas si Binay?
Well, for lack of anybody better. Kasi if they can find somebody better, siguro, they'll offer him. But right now, he's the head of the party. He calls the shots. Wala sila ibang makita na ano eh. So right now, the only viable candidate against probably Binay, si Binay has already announced his candidacy for 2016, is Mar. But if you're asking, can he win? It's a little compromise, kasi you're right. Yung initial ano niya, when he was running for president in 2010, mababa yung kanyang yung ratings sa surveys.
Yeah.
Tumaas lang siya nung sumali siya kay
Kay
Pinoy
Noy.
as vice president. And even then, yun na nga, eventually he lost so medyo compromised yung ability niya to win in 2016.
If Mar wins, is this going to be a continuation of the reform agenda of the present administration?
Somehow.
If Mar wins, somehow, dahil sa LP.
Oo. Tsaka nag-contribute din naman siya dun sa reform agenda ngayon. Diba?
If Binay wins, will it continue the reform agenda o bagong agenda to?
Yung iba. Kasi nga, wala naman halos pagkakaiba na eh.
Oo.
So there will be some, may continuity, may mga ililiko. Diba? Pero kaya nga, kasi ang choice naman talaga, hindi naman plataforma eh, personality.
Do you think the personalities under Una can make a case out of governance in 2016? With Binay as president?
Yeah, I wrote about it also. Parang, ang feeling ko nga is that there's not much difference between the two right now, the two groups, Una and Team Pinoy. And difference lang siguro, if you're going to look for it, is the lesser evil. Kasi,
Kawawa naman tayo.
kawawa naman talaga tayo. Because ang worry ko naman, on the other hand, is that I look at a group, Una, na, would say you tolerate a candidate, for instance, like Subiri. Eh, kaya nawala yun sa, he left office after 4 years because the news was tightening. Halata naman, all the proof was there na ndaya talaga during the election. Now, how can you allow a candidate like that to run? What principles does that anong prinsipyo mo kapag kami ganyan? Liban dyan, I think, it's the leadership. The Una is led by Enrile, Erap, and Jojo Binay. So you have to wonder what kind of governance that offers the country.
Are we being negative or being realistic? May pag-asa pa ba tayo? Can agenda and institutional reform override personality? Kasi madami na din naman tayo nakita institutional reform in the past 2 years. Can that override a changing culture, let's say? Let's go as far as that. Can that override personality going into 2016?
Not the way the parties are comporting themselves.
It's really up to the parties.
Oo.
Ako, I've been asked it so many times, may pag-asa pa ba tayo? And I've always thought na it has to do with changing the political culture talaga eh. And a great part of that, I think, is, alam mo, dapat palakasin mo taong bayan. In other countries, they can really go on autopilot. Kung minsan they have the most embassy, yung mga presidente nila are absolute imbeciles. Sa US, maraming ganyan. But the country goes forward because it's an autopilot. Saan galing yung autopilot? Sa lakas ng taong bayan.
Because the system support the
That's
people.
what a democracy is. It's a strong people. It's a
They
strong
formed
people.
institutions to make sure na papalakas yung taong bayan. Not in our case. In our case, binobobo nga eh.
Even with corruption, what stops corruption in those countries? It's not really yung mga public officials. It's a culture na pagka nakakaw ka, the whole country will be against you. Hindi ka mabubuhay.
In fact, that's the reason why, that's one of the basic reasons why our middle class is not here in the Philippines. It's outside. We have 10 million OFWs.
Pero taong bayan, kailangan supportado ng sistema. Ng
Dapat.
infrastructure.
All this time, nakala ko si Pinoy because he had people power behind him. That's what he's going to try to do, strengthen yung through voluntarism and so on, yung mga people's groups and so on. Because that's the only one way actually that he can sustain yung initiatives niya. Legacy mode, you have to rest it on the people.
Okay, we've talked about people, personalities. When we come back, we're going to talk about systems and processes, particularly the system that will allow us to elect who we want to elect, whatever kind of people we are, in whatever culture we're in right now. We'll take a short break. News Cafe will return after these reminders. We're still watching News Cafe on the Solar News Channel, and we're still joined by our guests, Conrad De Quiros and Jarius Bono. Conrad, Jarius, thanks for being here. Okay, we've talked about personalities and people, elections. Let's talk about systems. PICOS and the COMELEC. Jarius, ikaw ang dami mo na nasulat tungkol dito.
Nakakadismaya yung sa PICOS. Kasi lahat ng mga security, safeguards, tinatanggal ng COMELEC. Kung ano-anong palusot in the name of pagtitipid and whatever. Pero nakakatakot tuloy eh. Hanggang ngayon, wala pang source code.
Yeah.
The source code is what will ensure that the PICOS will function properly.
Right.
Recognize the genuine ballot, reject the fake ballot,
Right.
Count the votes, accurately, tally accurately, and then transmit to the canvassing centers.
Right.
Wala yung source code dahil tinanggalan ng lisensya ng Smartmatic, yung supplier ng COMELEC. Tinanggalan ng lisensya ng Dominion, which is the developer of the precinct count optical scanners. Eh, ang sabi sa batas, yung Automated Election Law of 2008, dapat ang bibilhin ng gobyerno, meaning COMELEC, ay yung yung equipment at software directly from the developer.
From Dominion.
Oh, in this case, Dominion. Dahil yun ang ano. Pero bakit sa Smartmatic tayo bumibili noong nag-lease purchase tayo noong 2009 for the 2010 election? That was already questionable na kumuha tayo from a middleman or systems integrator. Even back then, hindi pa na-produce yung source code na ginamit dun eh. Hanggang ngayon, wala. Ngayon, lalo nang wala dahil nga tinanggalan na ng license to sell and represent them. So, yung sinasabi pa ngayon ni Chairman Sixto Brillantes na buti na lang binili namin ng March of 2012, yung dating nililist na PCOS machines. Dahil nung Mayo tinanggalan ng license to sell yung Smartmatic.
Right.
Ibig sabihin, hawak na natin yung hardware and software, atin na yon. Sabi ko nga, abogado pa naman ito. Hindi niya alam kung ano pala ang software rules sa information technology, sa computers. Alam mo, miski isang damulakat tayo, ang dami natin. Ako, ang dami kong Apple. I've been using Apple for the past 25 years. Sa lahat ng makina ng Apple na binili ko, na kung ano pang computers and gadgets, ang akin lang doon yung hardware. Yung software never became
You'll
mine.
never own it.
I never owned that.
Yeah.
Pagka nga, kaya nga, kailangan may agree pa nga pagka mag-update ka.
Apple
di ba?
yun
Sa kanila yun eh. Hindi naman sa akin
Proprietary.
Proprietary Apple.
Same software, same kind of software.
Yeah.
Well, sa atin, I think, the problem of cheating will always be there. Nakakaingit actually ibang bansa yan. In 2002, I was in Germany. Tapos, to observe the elections, nag-imbita yung German embassy. At some point, nagtanong ako dun sa one of the speakers. Sabi ko, nagkaroon ba ng dayaan dito sa inyo? Was there ever been a case of cheating in recent years? Iisip siya na matagal eh. Hindi niya. I think there was a small village in East Germany. yung problem of cheating doesn't occur. Talagang inconceivable sa kanila na may ganyan eh. Sa atin, that's the most obvious. The problem of cheating has always been there. And lalo na kapag meron ka ng computerized elections. Kasi mas madaling magdaya kapag ano. This is the part where that gets interesting. Now, I've always been two minds about surveys. Kasi ang problema ko sa surveys, it really, on the other hand, parang it really creates a bandwagon effect. Pag lumalabas na sa surveys na ito mataas, it really draws people in. It's not a very intelligent vote that happens.
Okay.
Kasi parang isipin mo, tanga ako, pag binoto ko to, hindi naman ito mananalo eh.
Yeah. Kasi sabi ng survey, hindi siya mananalo.
Hindi siya mananalo. That's the unfortunate effect. But since may dayaan dito sa atin, it also on the other hand creates a very salutary effect na it somehow prevents massive cheating. Kasi kapag yung resulta ng eleksyon, napakalayo naman dun sa mga projected...
The sentiment ng tao.
Oo. And that's what I was
surveys.
banking on in 2010.
Yeah.
Sabi ko, may hirapan naman siguro na basta na lang dayain si Pinoy ng sagad-sagaran because the surveys were saying na
I have another view about that. No? Ang tingin ko, ang dayaan nagaganap ngayon through PCOS sa local lalo na. Local levels. Kasi sa national, as Conrad said, mahirap mo nang balingin yung Ang gagawin na lang ng nagdadaya using the PCOS, ikokopyahin na lang yung surveys.
That's
Sa
what
national.
that's what they're saying actually about 2010.
Yeah.
Yung nagkadayaan sa local.
Sa local. In fact, mayroong isang case sa Davao, there was a town, ninalify lahat ng results, di ba? Dahil nga nakita na hindi nagtatali yung PCOS count, tsaka yung nung prinesenta na yung mga ballots. Kaya nga ngayon, mayroong magandang idea hindi lang na ifa-file pa eh. Pero the idea now is, pagkatapos ng PCOS count, sige, yan, i-transmit nyo na yan. Bilangin pa rin, obligahin na bilangin lahat ng balota manually. In other words, hindi na yung random manual audit. Full manual audit
Full manual
in all the precincts. Ang nagdi-delay lang naman ng manual count dati, yung mga may protesta, ganyan. Ito walang protesta. I-check lang natin kung tama yung transmit
SOP.
nung PCOS machine dito sa precinct cluster na ito. Titingnan natin. No? Lalo na yung local. Para magkaroon na ng once and for all kung walang dayaan dyan, now we can all rest assured, hindi pala kayang dayain ng
Yun yung
PCOS.
sinasabi ni Gaslagman.
Ni Gaslagman. That's the beauty of his suggestion noon. Kasi sa kanya, ang i-computerize mo lang pagdating na sa canvassing. Ang delikado, sabi niya, yung
Botohan.
bilangan. Sabi niya, so, i-manual pa rin natin, walang problema. It happens dun sa probinsya. May
Taras-taras.
Pinanunood ng lahat ng tao, minamarkahan. Tapos kung meron kang cellphone, ika-camera mo lang. Tapos once it's done, and it's fairly accurate, sabi niya, tsaka mo i-canvas. I-computerize yung canvassing. It's an intelligent actually suggestion.
And it saves a lot of money, according
it does,
to Gas, that kind of
actually.
system. But we're here now. We're here with the PICOS. We have, how do I call it? Pirated software? Tama ba yun?
Unlicensed, yeah, unlicensed.
Unlicensed
So if we
software.
use it, we can get sued. The government can get sued and be blacklisted all over the world for being the biggest software pirate. Diba? Nakakahiya. Meron pa naman tayong kampanya, bawal magpirata ng mga pelikula, bawal magpirata ng, diba, ng mga music CDs. Nire-raid pa nga yung mga nagbebenta ng DVD. O ngayon, yung gobyerno natin, pakikita, the prime example of how to be a software pirate.
So if we pay for it, hindi na siya pirated.
If we pay for it. So, ibig sabihin, magbabayad tayo sa Dominion ng panibagong billion.
Correct.
Several billions of pesos worth na naman. Okay.
Para hindi pirated. Para magamit natin.
Oo, di naloko tayo ng Smartmatic.
Pero pag nabayaran natin, hindi na siya pirated, will we be happy with the results of the elections?
Yun pa rin, questionable pa rin. Kasi ang ginagawa nga ng Smartmatic ngayon, and COMELEC, halimbawa, yung compact flashcards, di ba, noong 2010 nagkaroon ng problema dyan. 2 weeks before election day, pinalitan lahat ng 76,000 compact flashcards. Ngayon, sabi nila, okay, itong flashcards kailangan yung worm type, write once, read many. Hindi pwedeng rewritable yan. Pero yun ang nakaspecify sa contract tsaka sa batas. Pero ang binili nila yun rin. Rewritable eh. Overpriced pa by 11.3 million pesos.
So someone can rewrite whatever is inside the CF card.
Bumili sila ng 82,000 compact flash memory cards na rewritable. Why? So, safeguard niya, security feature niyan, dapat warp time nga eh. Tapos yung tinanggal nila yung ultraviolet light na magde-detect ng genuine. Kasi meron may mga dapat yung may mga marks yung genuine ballots na mababasa ng ultraviolet light. Pero tinanggal nila yun eh. So, isa na namang Tapos yung password, yung secret password ng bawat member of the Board of Election Inspectors sa bawat precinct cluster, tinanggal na nila yun. Hindi na, ang mag-on ngayon ng mga PICOS machines, yung Smartmatic technicians.
But Jarvis, the impact of all of this, if you take away all the safeguards, the impact will be on the local, hindi sa national.
I think so.
Yeah, because nga dahil sa effect nung surveys, I think may deterring effect talaga yung surveys. But that's as far as the national level goes.
Tsaka mahirap dayain yung national, papasukan mo yung buong system.
Yeah. Well, actually,
local,
this country doesn't lack for yung mga IT na magagaling that can really crack a code. The only deterrent you really have is the expectation na kasi ito yung mga may trend na nangyayari with the surveys. Pero pagdating sa probinsya, alaberde yan eh.
Hindi, tsaka sino ba talaga nakaka-apekto sa buhay ng mamamayan? National officials o yung mayor, konsehal, di ba? Tayo directly affected sa mga ginagawa sa local. So, ang nakakatakot doon, pag yung naging highest bidder, ang bakbakan sa bawat for the mayoralty or governorship, patay na. Ang sama nung sistema natin. Talagang hindi na tayo makakaalis. For instance, nakaupo dyan, mga dynasts. Di, sila na lang talaga.
Well, more often than not, dynasty naman talaga mananalo sa local.
Oo.
Yeah, well, in the case ng 2010 actually, kasi nanalo nga si Pinoy and that apparently proved na malinis yung Pag nagdaya ka sa probinsya, mahirap ulitin niya kasi sasabihin niya, bakit si Pinoy ba? Nagdaya rin.
Kaya siya nanalo.
Kaya siya nanalo. So may ganyang complication. Pero sa ngayon, it's not a problem. Other than yung national nga na meron kang surveys na ganito, may trend na nangyayari.
Actually, para sa akin, by questioning the PICOS in 2010 and in 2013, I'm not questioning the mandate of the President. Pero ang tingin ko talaga, ang lakas ng kutob ko na dahil hindi sila nakagawa ng matinong sistema ng 2010, sinunod na lang nila yung surveys. Ang laki naman ng agwat talaga ni Pinoy. Miski hindi siya mandaya, mananalo naman siya.
Yun yung sinasabi ko.
Mas mahihirapan
because everything was pointing towards that. Mas mahirap paliwanag kung yung kalaban niya nanalo.
Magkakagulo.
Pero sa ibang labanan, yun ang importante. Wala no. Hindi naman
But in an elections like this,
in
midterm elections like this, when we're saying, when you're saying na wala naman, pare-pareho lang yan eh. Will cheating using the PCOS matter? At
Yun
all?
na, pare-pareho na nga. Tapos hindi pa binilang ng
Tama.
ng tama. Yan ba ibig sabihin ng secret balloting? We're not supposed to know who we voted for. Diba? Parang ganun.
Wala yung level of vigilance that was there in 2010 eh. Kasi nun takot talaga yung mga tao, baka matalo si Pinoy and so on. Ngayon, wala, people really don't care that much who wins and who loses.
But
That's which is
Jairus
a problem.
pointed out a very key element, secret balloting, no? Kasi dapat secret balloting, ito yung sinasabi ni Gas eh, secret balloting, public counting. Kasi sinasabi ni Gas, pagpasok ng balota mo sa PCOS, di mo naman alam kung binilang ng makina yung boto
hindi
mo.
ka naman bibigyan ng resibo eh. Yun
Wala
pa
namang resibo yun eh.
Isang security feature na
Dapat
tinanggal.
meron.
Dapat meron.
Because the machines are capable of giving a receipt telling you that you voted for so-and-so.
Oo. Ngayon, ang sinasabi, kasi baka gamitin daw yan para lalabas yung botante. Sasabihin, binoto kita, bayaran mo na ako. Di, gawan natin ang paraan na yung resibo will self-destruct. Or kailangan ihulog mo uli sa isa pang drop box na hindi mo ilalabas yun. Wala kang prueba ngayon na binoto mo para maibenta mo yung boto mo, di ba?
Mas safe pa talaga yung counting na publiko. Naandun yun sa ano eh. Naandun yung mga boto mo. Bibilangin.
Well,
Ilalagay sa blackboard.
we've run out of time, but you know, our job goes on as media. Our job goes on. So where do we go from here as media, Jairus?
Ako, para sa akin, continuous exposing.
Yeah.
Nakikita ko mga mali eh.
Which is what you always do anyway. Conrad, for you.
Sa akin, it goes beyond the elections talaga. Ako, mas tutok talaga ako dun sa changing the political culture. That's the key to it. That's the only way you can sustain everything that's decent. You rest it on the people, the power of the people.
Well, we're here to chronicle events and to tell you the story. That's all we're here for. Unfortunately, time's up for the story that we're telling today in this program. I'd like to thank our guests, Jairus and Conrad, for joining us for our special edition today. Join us again next Friday for another 360-degree discussion right here on News Cafe. I'm Jim Magsaysay. Salamat po.